Dear all, today I'll be discussing or I'll be reading a biography of JRD Tata, who was born in 1904 and died in the year 1993. JRD Tata, he was a corporate legend. He was literally a high flyer and at the same time a down to earth business magnate. His full name was Jahangir Ratanji Dadabhai Tata, but to his friends he was just plain JRD or simply J. As he always preferred to be on informal terms with people, his name Jahangir means conqueror of the world, something to which he lived up to in a way, the way he headed the renowned Tata companies. It was at the young age of 34 that he became the chairman of Tata Sons, the holding company for steel, textile, and airline empire that was started by his grand uncle Jamshedji Tata in 1877. Born on July 1904, JRD lived almost the whole century to a ripe old age till his death in Geneva in 1993. Though he was born in Paris and educated there for many years, he spent over 70 years of his working life in India. His gift to India was the introduction of civil aviation in 1932 and later helping the country to spread her wings abroad by starting the national carrier Air India International. It was said that all credit for the success of this venture was rightfully the due of only one person, JRD. For 52 years, the largest industrial group in India, Tata Sons, prospered under his stewardship and produced everything from steel to electric power to chemicals and automobiles. JRD allowed his senior executives to manage their divisions they headed as if they were their own. As a result of this understanding approach, the companies flourished very well and grew from some 13 to nearly 80, covering new areas such as automobiles, fertilizers, and telecommunication services, making Tata's one of the largest business organizations of the country with revenues between 8 to 9 billion dollars. On the social scene, he was the first person in his time to advocate family planning for the masses. The then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru did not agree with JRD on this issue, for he believed that the country's strength was its people. Tata was eventually proved right and undeterred, he campaigned relentlessly to promote family planning, even establishing an agency, the Family Planning Association of India, that is to date offering unstinted support for the cause. He received for his efforts the UN Population Award, one of the last of the many international awards he was presented with, late though the recognition came for his efforts. JRD also started two national institutions, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and the National Center for Performing Arts, due to his great vision and foresight. A third renowned institution that owes its existence to JRD is the National Institute of Advanced Studies at Bangalore, which came into being just a couple of years before the great man passed away. Important among the other institutes he created was the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, where Homi Bhabha shaped the cradle of India's atomic energy program. JRD also assisted Homi's brother, Jamshed Bhabha, set up the National Center of Performing Arts in the belief that man is incomplete without music and art. The largest cancer hospital in India, Tata Memorial, had JRD playing a decisive role at its inception. He was extremely particular that the families offered in the hospital should not only be only radium treatment and surgery, but this hospital should be able to carry on the triple objectives of treatment, research, and education. We should treat research as important as treatment. It is only after many years that the Cancer Research Institute Chennai now stands next to the Tata Memorial Hospital. Tata's success can be considered to be remarkable since most of his working life he was faced with obstructive government policies. For 30 years, JRD battled against the misguided policies of a controlled economy that he felt blocked the growth of the national industrial economy and also shattered the fond dreams of India's prosperity that he nurtured for so long. Industry was tied up in an elaborate web of permits and licenses that penalized corporations for increasing production capacity or diversifying product range. He once is said to have complained, I doubt that there is anywhere in the world outside India an executive in charge of a major enterprise with less power than I have. JRD found this industrial climate very stifling, yet he did not permit his spirits to sink because he found great pleasure in creative achievement and he strived to do so even where others seemed to falter. Though JRD came from a well to do family, his tastes and needs were simple. When he was just around 40 years old, he gave away part of his wealth to the JRD Tata Trust, which has all these years spent over lakhs of rupees on worthy causes, every paisa of the trust coming from him. Tata took more personal interest in the welfare of other people rather than his own self, and it was not only with people whom he knew well, but others whom he did not know at all. What encouraged him was the joy of achievement. His pleasure lay not only in what he did and achieved himself, but also in the success of people whom he had groomed and who worked under him. When he stepped down from the chairmanship of Tata Sons after a long and fruitful tenure of 52 years, what stood out rather prominently was that he was the only eminent industrialist in the country who had allowed to flourish in his own organization. People who had grown to become corporate leaders in their own rights. He was happy for them and never grudged them their climb up the ladder, even though if it meant they worked for their betterment outside the Tata fold. Once JRD came to learn about a young employee of the Tata Group being in a quandary whether to emigrate or not. He called the young man to his office and berated him for not bringing his problem to him, Tata, for discussion. He asked the youngster, why don't you talk to me? Why don't you use me when I am still here? JRD was easily accessible to all his employees, however small they happened to be, and his concern for their welfare was absolutely sincere, as they all knew. He was a friendly person too, even for those whom he did not know he had a smile. He claimed, the trouble is that we don't smile enough. When I am driving in the car and a person recognizes me, I look at the person and smile. This makes him happy and does not cost me anything. He tasted joy from small things in life that most people let pass by, preoccupied as they are with themselves all the time. His joy was so spontaneous and selfless that he felt the urge to share it with others as well. He had no pretensions and felt deeply concerned for the have nots he saw around him in India. Once, reacting to a comment by a Western economist that India could be an economic superpower in the near future, JRD said, I don't want India to be an economic superpower. I want India to be a happy country. His mastery over the French language was his great pleasure, especially since it was his mother tongue. JRD's father had married a French lady and later she converted to Zoroastrian faith. Tata's knowledge of English was therefore not so strong at the beginning. He was determined to become fluent in English once he settled down in India. He in his early 20s. He was always conscious of this almost till the end. He took extreme trouble to select the right words and phrases when he wanted to express his thought. He never did things by halves. He always wanted to excel. He was very particular that he gave his best and expected people who associated with him to do the same too. Flying was a passion with him right from childhood. When he took to flying in the 1920s, he read all the books he could lay his hands on pertaining to the subject. When he took to playing golf, it was the same story again. He was a perfectionist in everything he did. Raymond D'Souza, who served as Tata's secretary for a long period, recalls he had to be in the driver's seat all the time, but this did not mean he controlled those who worked for him with an obsession, though he expected them to work with the same sincerity he did. It is said that once JRD woke up an Air India official in the middle of the night to discuss a hoarding. Tata did not approve. The official took no offense at all at being disturbed at the unearthly hours because he knew that JRD himself gave so much from his end and the official had to reciprocate in a like manner. During the freedom struggle in India, JRD was greatly tempted to jump into the fray. His love for the country greatly aroused but held himself back since he recognized that his responsibility lay in forging the economic independence of India, not participating in the political arena. He was greatly impressed by Jawaharlal Nehru and later hero worshipped him too after he met him in Mumbai in 1924 for the first time during Motilal Nehru's visit and stay with R.D. Tata, father of JRD. When India became independent, JRD was 43 years old and full of great enthusiasm concerning the future of the fledgling nation. He claimed, I had tremendous dreams and expectations of cooperation between the private sector and the government. Sadly, many of these dreams were still born except for the concept of Air India International that became a reality in 1948. Going back to the beginning, one can say that JRD was the product of two continents. Ratanji Dadabhoy was a cousin and of Jamshedji Tata, who brought the Industrial Revolution to India in the process making available steel, hydroelectric power, and high level technological education in the country. On one of his visits to France, he joined French classes run by a Madame Rieury to gain fluency over the language. He eventually fell in love with the teacher's daughter and proposed to her. She was just 20 while he was 42. The marriage created a furor in the Parsi community back home because Ratanji Dadabhoy had not only married a Westerner who was out of the community but also taken the daring step of having his European and Christian wife converted to Zoroastrian faith. She changed her name. She was Suzanne Breary to Suni thereafter. JRD was born to this couple in 1904 in Paris and schooled in three places across the globe at Paris, Mumbai, and Yokohama. He attended too an English grammar school briefly so that he could improve his knowledge of the language. It was only after he was 21 that he came to settle down in Mumbai. JRD was very attached to his mother. According to him, she was a very resourceful, intelligent, and adaptable woman who, with five children, packed up her household in Paris single handedly to join her husband in India, who then worked for the House of Tatas. She would return every other year or so to her own country, resulting in disruptions in the education of JRD and the other children on a regular basis. JRD's for aviation took root on one such visit to France because of their neighbor, Blériot, who happened to be the first man to fly over the English Channel and who had a house on the coast of France near to R.D. Tata's house. The pilot, who often flew a small plane from a beach nearby, once gave the youngster a ride in the skies, and then the rest was history. Tata, who was just 15 years old, then was determined that he too would one day fly. It took 10 years from then for him to realize this ambition. Soon after he completed school, he was drafted for a year into the French army and he had plans of going to Cambridge. After this stint, and a place for him had been reserved for him too at the university. But things did not take place as he wished. His father called him back to India, making JRD forego his cherished dream of studying at Cambridge, which he regretted till the end of his life. He said it gave him an inferiority complex not to have had attained university education in his life. On returning to India, JRD was inducted into the House of Tatas in 1925 as a trainee. His father passed away a scant 9 months after JRD's return, catapulting him into the chair of the director of the largest industrial house in India that produced a range of products from soap to textiles, steel, and electric power. He was humble, nevertheless. He often said, because of a lack of technical knowledge, my main contribution to the management was to encourage others. He confessed that at times it meant suppressing yourself. It was painful but necessary. To lead men, you have to lead them with affection. In the year 1929, JRD realized one of his dearest wishes and passed out of flying school with number 1 on his license. He was the first Indian pilot to qualify to fly a plane. He participated in the Aga Khan Trophy competition a year later that required him to fly solo from India to England. JRD did not win, but a man called SP Engineer walked away with the prize. But then, thanks to the gentlemanly behavior Tata displayed during the course of the competition, SP was stranded midway in Egypt for lack of a spark plug that he sorely needed to make his plane fly again. It was JRD who sportingly helped SP, his rival in the race, to get started again. SP later joined the Indian Air Force to reach the post of the Chief of the Air Force. It is said that winning the trophy in some small measure that certainly contributed to his induction in the force. Aviation and marriage almost came together for Tata. In 1929, he started to fly, and in 1930, he got married to Thelma Vikaji. Rewards and honors always poured in. Though Tata was averse to them, they were something he never craved for, though whatever he did in any field that he involved himself was so exemplary that recognition never failed to come. In 1992, the Bharat Ratna, which is the country's highest honor, was presented to him. Tata's humility and simplicity could be measured by the fact that the citation he most cherished amongst those he received was the rather little known Dadabhai Naroji Award of rupees 10,000. He was deeply impressed by Dadabhai Naroji's crusade in the 1880s for encouraging girls to attend school and get education. Naroji knocked on the doors of Mumbai homes entreating fathers to send their daughters to school. The JRD and Thelma J. Tata Trust, created to uplift women, received a boost when Tata was presented with the award and he promptly turned it over to the new trust he had formed. Later, not satisfied with this, he put in most of the proceeds of the sale of his flat, which ran into crores of rupees into this trust again. He felt deeply concerned over the plight of women in India, especially for those among the economically backward strata. It was just a few years before he died. He established his trust, hoping to improve the condition of such women by means of the welfare schemes initiated there. When Mother Teresa visited Jamshedpur, JRD escorted her back to Calcutta in a private plane of the Tata Company. It was evening time and the sun was setting in the skies when Mother Teresa made ready to say her prayers on the rosary. Not taking the cue that the nun wished for some solitude, JRD, in his enthusiasm, kept chatting and disturbing her, explaining at length how the poverty in India deeply upset him, and so on. Ultimately, unable to concentrate on her prayers, Mother Teresa raised her bent head and asked Mr. Tata, "Why are you worrying about poverty? Your work is to open more industries, give more employment to the people, and leave the rest to God." It is needless to say that there were no more attempts at conversation from Tata after that, till they reached Calcutta half an hour later. When asked about the secret of his success, he just said there was one golden rule he tried to follow: strive for perfection, and you will reach excellence. He was completely devoted to his work and put in inordinately long hours at the office, even though he was at the head of the organization and not required to do so. He confessed he put in some 70 to 80 hours a week. Even then, his sense of humor never failed him. You know something? He often asked people, "I don't like work, I like to be interrupted." He had some principles that he often recommended to others. They were: nothing worthwhile is achieved without deep thought and hard work. One must think for oneself and never accept at face value slogans or catchphrases to which unfortunately our people are too easily susceptible. One must forever strive for excellence or even perfection in any task, however small, and never be satisfied with the second best. No success or achievement in material terms is worthwhile unless it serves the needs or interests of the country for its people and is achieved by fair and honest means. For human relations not only bring great personal rewards but are essential for the success of any enterprise. JRD was born so far away from India. Yet there will be hardly any Indians who have loved this country as much as he did. He would often tell people that if he had a choice of being reincarnated, he would definitely like to be reborn here since it was such an interesting country. Yet there was a part of him that flinched to once again go through the pain of witnessing the conditions of poverty of our people. It was this feeling which urged him to ponder on social responsibilities of companies other than what they did for their own staff and workers. He desired that ideally industries adopt villages and spare their managers, engineers, and other skilled workers to go into the villages and help new developments undertaken with the cooperative effort of the villagers and the companies. Introduction of family planning education and assistance to the rural poor was another of his pet projects. He set the example in Jamshedpur, where his novel ideas were pursued through rural development work, and many other industrialists followed suit. Thousands of villages have benefited by this social work by acquiring skills and opportunity for employment. Even tribal women near the forest of Jamshedpur learned to earn a livelihood because JRD had the wisdom to look beyond just earning money for his companies but also helping the downtrodden to live in dignity. TISCO alone, TISCO. TISCO alone has some 250 villages under its wing, with the other Tata companies following the example. By awakening the conscience of the industry to social responsibility, JRD presented a human face of the industry, capable of looking beyond just profits for itself. For nearly 40 years, Tata was the head of the most prominent industrial house in the country, running also his pet project, the Tata Airlines that became Air India in 1946. He faced great triumphs as well as frustrations in his career, especially due to the exasperating policy of permits and licenses the government adopted in its work, but nothing damped his spirits when he dealt with his favorite company, Air India. His spirit soared and reached the skies since he had nurtured it tenderly from its inception. One day he was plucked from the skies and dashed to the ground when the then Prime Minister Morarji Desai decided in some whimsical moment to replace Tata as the man who headed the aviation company. It is said that the move was ordered without even telling Tata beforehand and replacing him with a man whom JRD himself had appointed as managing director of a medium sized Tata company. The man, L. L.C. Lal, was the first person to call from Delhi and break the news to Tata. Soon it was all over like wildfire on the radio, in the newspapers, and everybody's lips. It was one incident that hurt Tata most deeply, but there was nothing he could do. Another incident that left a grievous scar on JRD was the death of Ghoul contractor. She was not only his physician but family friend who looked after his ailing wife Thelma, who had suffered a stroke, and invalid sister too. One morning she rode JRD's car to work and while stepping out to cross the road was fatally knocked down by a passing vehicle. It upset and shocked Tata beyond words. Dr. Ghoul contractor was just 61. She cared for Tata as his family doctor with great devotion, even though he tended to be a difficult patient. She was so firm and strict with him that he often introduced her to people as Saddam Hussein. She was very plain spoken and blunt, especially with Tata, and he knew it was so because she wanted the best for him. He regarded her with affection and respect. Dr. Ghoul contractor's sudden death was a deep shock for Tata. That too at an age when he was not as young or strong as when he had confronted other tragedies in life like the death of his siblings, as well as of close associates like Dr. Homi Bhabha and Jean Bertolli in the AI crash on Mont Blanc in 1966. Probably a year or earlier, he would have got a hold on the situation. Things were entirely different now. Dr. Ghoul contractor had served him selflessly beyond the call of her profession, even running his home for them out of sheer attachment for the family. He felt completely devastated, robbed of a physician whom he thought would continue to look after his sick wife and sister in the event of anything happening to him. Something seemed to be snuffed out within him. He is claimed to have told the deceased doctor's mother, "I should have gone, not she." His health, which was already deteriorating, seemed to go downhill from then onwards. The year 1991 was a turning point in his life. As his health started to fail him, within a period of 3 months, he underwent 4 angioplasty procedures in England and the USA. That year, he decided to step down from his last chairmanship, that of Tata Sons, the parent company of the Tata Group. Tata always said that he did not want to die in his country but die abroad. The reason being he was reluctant to be a bother to people whom he knew and who cared for him. He was humble, yet he knew what a lot of trouble his dying in India would cause. On 9th October 1993, he left for Geneva, and within a month's time, on 4th November, JRD was admitted to the Geneva State Hospital with high fever and urinary infection that was treated and brought under control. He had a premonition. He had a premonition that his end was near and was willing to go. He passed away in the early morning of 29th November 1993, fulfilling his desire that he die abroad without any fuss, and it was a humble government hospital that tended to his last needs. JRD's body was taken from Geneva to Paris, where he wanted to rest at the Père Lachaise, where his dear ones also lay amongst the beautiful trees and the French poets he so admired. Thus ended the life of a simple but great son of India. Thank you so much. If you like the video, please follow, like, and share. Thank you.